Hi everybody, let's learn to use Excel to make a certain type of graph called a histogram, something you might have seen in math class before. We're going to use some made up data so that I can try and describe what's going on here. So I've got my basic bottle, which went 20 meters. I've got my prototype, which went 18, and I got my final, which went to 27. Now, based on my data, my prototype and final are to two significant digits. My basic bottle is to just one. That would depend on the data that I collected, right? So I'll have to look at my data and decide, am I allowed to keep two digits because I have a certain one and I'm allowed one more uncertain one, or is my first non-zero digit uncertain, and so that's I only get one. So you could have different amounts of significant digits for those depending on your data. Okay, so I've just put this into a data table. I've already talked with you about how to do that in the previous video, so I'll assume you're okay with that. Now we're going to do some graphing. Now, when students are graphing, the first thing you need to do is grab your data, but you're going to be tempted to grab the whole thing. The problem is we don't want the word rocket and the word height in there because sometimes that'll work out, but often it won't know what to do with it and it'll make a graph that's messy. So what I'd like you to do instead is just grab the basic bottle prototype and final and your data in meters. That's all we're going to grab, okay? And then we're going to like clean up our graph from there and modify it from there. We're just going to grab that. Now this is called one variable data because it's not like there's an X and a Y. It is a qualitative thing, descriptor like basic bottle, prototype, and final, and then one bit of information about it. So one variable data like this, we'd usually represent with a histogram or a bar graph. You could also do it with like a pie chart, for example. Those all work really well for one variable data. For two variable data, where we're changing one number and seeing what it does to another number, right? In that case, you'd need a scatter plot and you're doing lines of best fit, curves of best fit, and that kind of thing. This is one variable data, so we're not going to do lines of best fit, curves of best fit because we won't have a scatter plot for this. So we've grabbed our data. We're going to go insert up here at the top. I want to remind everybody, it's really important when you're doing this that you are using the app, not the web-based version. So don't open Excel in your browser, right? Like Chrome or Edge or or Firefox, any of those browsers. Don't open it in the browser. You got to open the app because the browser doesn't have good graphing functionality. In fact, it's really bad and it'll cause problems for you. So open the app, which will have full functionality. If you're not sure how to do that, come talk to me, or you can check in at the library and they'll be able to help you out because you have this software is available for free. They're like a public school student. So I'll click insert. Now I have over here, it says recommended charts. There's a whole bunch of different types. I don't want scatter plots. I don't want pie charts. I could do any of those, but what I want is, it's going to call it a bar chart. With the real name for that is a histogram. Now, you could choose like a cool 3D one. I don't want you to do that. That's just gonna like that's for reports when you're trying to, if a company's trying to impress its investors. We're doing science. We want this to be the most readable. That's what we're after, right? So we're just going to click our basic one here. This is our, we call it the real name is a histogram. So I'll just click that and boom, my histogram appears. Right now I could pick some different formats. I could, any of these is reasonably fine as long as it's nice and clear. Um, depending on what you're looking for, if you like wider bars or narrower bars or whatever, doesn't matter. I kind of like the look of this one here. I like how it has the number on top. So I'm going to choose that one here. Now, I got my graph, but I need to add some stuff to my graph, right? First of all, I could put in a chart title. Chart title should just describe what we're seeing. So we could say height of various water pressure rockets. And then it's in, we'll put actually the meters on the axis. So I could put that as my title. If I find that's a little too big, I can go to home and I can shrink the size just how you would normally. And that's looking pretty good. Now, I'm going to need some more stuff on here, though. So there's a little plus button up here in the corner. That's where we're going to access all kinds of different stuff. All the different chart elements. Now it's already got axes on there. It doesn't have axis titles. So I am going to put axis titles on there because I don't yet know what these things are, right? So this axis title, I'm going to click on it on the y-axis, and I'm going to say what this is. This is launch height, and it's in meters. So I'll make sure that my units are on there. This other axis title, is the type of rocket. So I'll say type of rocket. That doesn't have units. And this is looking pretty nice. Now I can mess with this, right? I can add in other elements. I won't put in like a line of best fit or which should be a trend line because that wouldn't make sense for something like this, right? Um, we could mess with our style, right? We could change like colors and contrasts and all those sorts of things. Maybe I want to go for a nice Westgate orange there, a burnt orange for school colors, something like that. But now this is good to go. Now, if I want to put this graph into my report, I click on the graph like this, kind of on the background here. I will right click and I'll just go copy. And then I can paste that directly in. Now, as before with the data table, you can paste it in as a graph that can be manipulated, or you can paste it in as a picture. If you're sure that this is what I want, it's good to go, I would recommend pasting it in as a picture because that's going to usually be easier to work with. Okay. You can also change if you're finding it's hard to read. For example, I want bigger font. I can choose things on the y-axis here. And I can see my graph happens to start at 0, which is good. But what if my graph started at like 17, right? Then my graph would look like this, which is pretty misleading. And sometimes it'll automatically choose numbers like that for your axes that you don't like. So I'm going to put that back to 0 because I want my axis to start at 0 so it's not misleading. Okay. For my major units, it's every 5. I could do every 2 if I wanted. And you'll see, I actually did every 23. And you'll see not as many lines show up and not as many numbers on the axis. 5 seems like pretty reasonable though. I can add in a whole bunch I can mess around with this, a whole bunch. But if I want to make these bigger, I'll click on this and I'll go back to home and I'll just increase my font size. And you see I can make those bigger. I can bold them if I want them to show up more nicely. Same thing for these ones here. I can click on them, then I can go to home and change my font size. I can bold them and italicize them and underline them. I guess I can't underline them actually. I can do any of that I want in order to make my graph appear really nice on my page. Okay, I hope that helps. Come see me if you have other issues or if you're having some challenges with graphs. Sometimes Excel can be a little picky with graphs. So let me know if you need a hand. Good luck.